Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 6E March 1st Commission meeting. We are about to get underway. There we go. Okay, people are filing in. Welcome, everyone. As a reminder, any inappropriate behavior, you will be removed from the meeting and not let back in. Thank you for helping us keep things civil. And yeah, let's go ahead with item one. Well, yeah, let's go to item one and then get the roll call started.
All right, let's see if we can count to four. Good evening. My name is Alex Lopez. I'm the Secretary of the Commission. I'm going to do roll call. 6E01.
Present.
6E02 here. 6E03. 6E03. Frank, I think you're on mute. I'll come back around. 6E04.
Here in Ward 5.
Okay, 6E05.
Present.
6E06.
Present.
6E07. And 6E03.
Present.
Okay, we have 6 of 7 commissioners present. We have a quorum.
Great. Thank you so much. Let's see. Should I share the agenda on the screen now that we've got this all figured out? Share my screen. Share the agenda. There it is. So just a quick note on the agenda, the one that we had posted and circulated earlier. Last week, there was one change. I left it on the agenda with a time of 0 so that all the other numbers stayed aligned. Do I have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
I second.
Thank you. Any discussion about the agenda? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? Okay, so 6-0, we have a agenda. Thank you, everyone. And also last week a couple weeks ago, we circulated the minutes from the February meeting. Got some feedback from some individuals. They have been implemented. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the February meeting?
I move that we approve the minutes from the February meeting.
Thanks. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of approval of the February minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Hearing none, we have approval of the minutes 6-0. Okay. Next item on the agenda, we've got PSA report, Metropolitan Police Department 1D. This is the area south of New York Avenue. And Captain Duro, are you on the line?
Captain Duro's not here tonight. It's Lieutenant Donegan for 1 day.
Okay, Lieutenant Donegan, thanks for joining us here this evening.
So in the last month, there were property crime is trending upwards. It's kind of continuing the overall trend in the last, I'd say about 6 months or so, as the world is reopening and hopefully moving past the pandemic. So that's something that we're keeping an eye on, but it's not really on the violent side of things, on the south of New York Avenue, part of the ANC, there were 4 robberies in the last month, which includes an attempted robbery at the Busboys and Poets on K Street, and then 3 different robberies involving knives or possible other sharp objects of sorts around the First Street corridor from H to K on the northwest side. And those ones likely involve juveniles. And we do have one person in custody related to one of the, or one person was arrested related to one of the robberies. And hopefully that helps change the trend that was developing over there. With the most recent one was yesterday, but again, hopefully with the arrest that was made, helps to stop that development. I'm being quick. It's my promise to this ANC. So any questions, or we can go to 3D.
Any questions from the commissioners about about any police activity or crime in the 1D area?
Hey, Lieutenant Donegan, thanks for joining today. Following the incident at the Busboys and Poets, I'm aware that a few city officials came down to the neighborhood to do a walkthrough, and among them was Charles Allen, and he kind of gave me a readout of some of that walkthrough, and he had said that 1D was getting an additional 12 officers, about half of which were assigned to the 400 block of K Street. Could you speak to that a little bit, about the implementation of that, or what you're seeing with respect to that?
I don't know about that. So that's news to me. I will, sir, if that's true, I think my commander would be thrilled to hear the news. So I'll be asking him about that. You said 12 new officers.
Yeah, I'll send you a note, and I'll put Captain Duro on it too. But
Okay.
that is my understanding that, and I didn't have a sense of timeline, whether that would start perhaps that's starting in March, or perhaps the timeline for that hasn't kicked in yet. But my understanding was 12 new officers, about half of which would be assigned to the 400 block of K Street.
Interesting.
Okay, I'll follow up with you about that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any additional comments or questions from commissioners? Do we have any questions from the community? Anyone on the phone can raise your hand by pressing *9. Okay, it looks like we are pretty quiet here this evening. So you have a few extra minutes. Is there anything else, Lieutenant, that you'd want to share?
Well, right now I'm sitting out on a post waiting for the State of the Union address tonight, and so there's a ton of police out here, which includes the Philadelphia and New York police departments are out as well tonight, and we are going to continue being out here. We're kind of waiting to see what's happening with this trucker convoy that's supposed to be coming. I think some of the scheduled events so far have been dramatically lower in attendance than anticipated or hoped for, I guess. So we'll see what happens, what's to come, but we are eagerly awaiting their arrival to see what happens and make sure that things stay safe. So I think on the 6E side of the first district, there's really not as much of the kind of random rental vehicles that have police officers sitting there waiting to block traffic. But you go around Capitol Hill, you'll see a lot of kind of random looking cars, and those are rented by the police department waiting to see what needs to be done for blocking traffic for these truckers if they wind up coming into the city. So we are ready and waiting for them.
Great. So I will ask one other question, which is that on my bike ride home from the office this evening, when I glanced over at 5th and K Northwest, I noted a vehicle that looked like it wasn't a standard police vehicle, but it was did have some sort of lights on the front that was blocking the bicycle lane on K Street in front of the 7-Eleven. Is that standard operating procedure? Is that something that we have to just live with when it comes to these sorts of events? Or could that officer perhaps move that vehicle to a place where it wouldn't threaten the lives and safety of cyclists and people on scooters?
I would hope my answer should go without saying, but obviously that's not the standard or the expectation. I think anytime there are these major events that happen, there's a fair number of people that leave the building for the first time in a while, and might have forgotten that there's a lot of things might have changed a bit since the last time they were out on the street, to be quite honest with you. But it's something I know Captain Duro sent an email reminder just this afternoon to the first district about respecting the bike lanes when we're in motor vehicles. And it's certainly something that we try to be mindful of. So hopefully if you saw somebody in the car, if you said something, hopefully they were quick to fix their behavior. But it's certainly, I'd rather not hear it, but it's good to hear the feedback so that we can hopefully try to address that and make sure people stop doing it.
I greatly appreciate that. And just noted that yesterday evening, also on my ride home, there was a police vehicle blocking the bike lane in front of the 7-Eleven. And maybe you were preparing for tonight. Who knows? Okay, so before we move on to 3D, do we have any other comments or questions from the commissioners or the community? It looks like there are some Q&A questions that we can, I'll go ahead and read them off. We do have a little more time. Anonymous attendee asks, is there any correlation to the rise in crime to when the homeless shelter on 5th switched from a women's shelter to a men's shelter?
I don't think there's any kind of link that we can draw to that.
Okay. I believe that same person says that they had returned home after a trip and was surprised about the change. I believe actually on our last session, someone had asked Councilmember Pinto what the status was of the rehab of that facility. So I think the answer was it's maybe not. I don't recall exactly the answer. Okay, so if there's no additional questions from the community, we can move on to Captain Small. Again, you've got 10+ minutes for this session, so feel free to use that time wisely. Thanks.
Evening, everybody. Can you see me now?
Yep, you're up. Thank you.
Evening. How's everyone doing? For the area we're examining here to talk to you about tonight, in the last 30 days, there's been approximately 5 reported violent crimes. 2 of them were assaults involving a weapon, and 3 of them were robberies. This is a very slight increase from this time last year, but we have had a very substantial decrease in robberies compared to the same time last year for these 30 days. Be happy to answer any specific questions anyone has about that in just a moment. But the other thing that I always bring up that I think everybody's probably sick of hearing about is the stolen auto issues that we have. So for the 3rd district, in the last week alone, there's been 18 vehicles that were reported stolen. 13 of those were opportunistic cases where somebody left their vehicle running and unattended. So we're really trying to work with the community and citizens about keeping our property in our own hands by turning the key, parking the car in a legal parking space and taking your keys with you. 7 of those cases were, of those 13 were some sort of a delivery driver. So that's really something that we're trying to work on in general, and really need folks to help us to help them with that. A lot of times these cars are taken and then used in other violent crimes in other places. Moving on from that, we have been doing a lot of traffic enforcement in school zones, trying to get drivers under better control and have better manners on the road when they're operating. Everybody's returning to work now, and we still have a lot of folks that are driving too fast or making other poor decisions when they're out there operating their cars. So we do have increased enforcement throughout the city, not just in 3D for school safety areas. And we have had some impacts and have heard back from a lot of people in the community that they're seeing the officers out there doing the traffic enforcement and are appreciative of that. I know that Commissioner Aguilar, that's a big deal for you, and happy to say that we really are trying our best to work on that. If anybody has any areas that they feel need any kind of extra attention, we're happy to try to work that into the rotation so that we can address every area that needs the special attention for traffic enforcement as much as possible. I don't want to hold your meeting up, so I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
So it looks like Commissioner Niger has a question.
Of course I do. So Captain Small, I'm live from Ward 5, at the N Street Mardi Gras celebration. I am literally feet away from where the homicide took place. I'm right across from Dunbar High School. I can look right over and see the steps where the person was, I guess, gunned down. So what is going on with that investigation?
They have a lot of very good leads that they're working on for that. I do believe that we'll most likely have a closure to that in a reasonable amount of time. I'm not able to discuss any of the fine details about what led to that homicide. I would say that it does appear that the people involved in that are known to each other, and that it was not a randomized act of violence that occurred in the community. It doesn't change the circumstances that someone lost their life, but I'm only trying to say that it was not just a purely random situation. The people involved do appear to have some sort of history that led to whatever it is that made them make that decision.
So did you gather footage, I assume from Dunbar High School, but did you talk to any of my constituents to gather they all have Ring cameras up and down here.
A little bit of that got cut off, Commissioner. I'm sorry. Can you say it again?
So did you gather from my constituents footage from all their doorbell cameras?
Our detectives handle all of that from the violent crimes division and the homicide branch. It would be very inappropriate for me to comment on any specific locations that they gathered anything, partly because I'm not aware of all the locations, but mainly for everyone's safety, I really cannot discuss that.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
I have a question. On let's see, I think it was early in the morning on this most recent Sunday, there was a shooting at 7th and S, or a high number of rounds were discharged. I read it, the 39 shell casings were found. Thankfully, nobody was hit. Car was damaged. Is there anything you could tell us about that event, whether we believe it was people shooting at each other, if it was just somebody shooting?
So that's under active investigation. They're definitely
Okay.
trying to get to the bottom of that. It does, from the evidence that we have, look as if there were two vehicles that were traveling through the area, exchanging gunfire with each other. And that's how the other cars that were parked around the area ends up being damaged. But that is definitely being worked on and doing everything we can with that, because we just can't have that in the community. So we are working on it, but it was not stationary. It didn't just happen to occur on the corner. It does look like cars were driving, and actually somebody in the vehicles, who knows how many people were inside of them, was shooting back and forth at each other.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. So I'll go ahead and take a couple questions on my own real quick. Thanks for this status update on the school traffic enforcement. Could you, I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but could you specify or help us understand what the impact has been sort of specifically, and maybe which schools you've been stationed at within the 6E community?
So it's on a rotating basis. The Special Operation Division, we call it SOD, you hear that a lot. They handle the traffic related operations like this. So they could, you'd have to talk with them about the details of how they choose a location. They gather that information through their data that they have, and they deploy the units that are going to cover those areas for the timeframes that they specify. And pretty much every day an officer ends up being assigned to it, or an officer might sign up to work it as an overtime assignment, depending on what the traffic initiative is. And they get assignments from the SOD officials on a daily basis. So I know in 3D, they're trying to hit as many of the schools as possible for the school safety zones, the trying to do better whenever we can with like the newer hardened bicycle lanes that are starting to pop up throughout the city. So I can't say specifically like how they make their decision, but they do make them based on data and also from, of course, community input. But it is always on a rotating basis. So I can't say specifically how they decide.
Sure. And, I'm just curious, U-turns are illegal in the District of Columbia, is that correct?
I would say that in most cases, there'll be a sign that's going to specify whether or not it's prohibited at that location. other than the standard rules that we have for the roadway, which would always make it illegal. Like you'll see people make an improper U-turn from all the way on one side of the road, all the way to the other side of the road. That's never going to be something that's permitted. That's just part of our, I'll call it basic traffic code.
Okay.
But in other locations, you might see a sign up that specifically says it's prohibited to do a U-turn at that location. Typically, that's going to be at a intersection that has a traffic control device on it, and there'll be a clearly marked sign.
Sure. So just on my morning, commute this morning during school, school entry hours, I witnessed a U-turn across the double yellow in the middle of the block, right in front of the new Banneker High School. So if you haven't rotated that area into your enforcement for school safety, I would definitely appreciate some attention there. It is sort of getting to be a little like the Wild West over there. So I do have some time left for questions from the community. There are some in the chat. If anyone wants to ask one live, feel free to raise your hand, or if you're on the phone, *9. We have one live. We're going to go ahead and unmute Mr. Schmidt.
Hi, I'm a relatively new constituent. We just moved into 1110 6th Street Northwest. And in the 10 days that we've been here, we've had 4 attempted burglaries. And we filed police reports, and at one point on Sunday night called 911 live as it was happening, and no one ever came to investigate. And we're feeling pretty uncomfortable in the neighborhood. Another burglary happened last night. They keep entering the abandoned units upstairs from us in the building, but they attempt to enter our unit every time they come into our backyard. So we're curious for a response from the police on how they're going to handle that.
I'm actually checking that one because I believe the officers, the one they were talking about, they did go out, but when they were there, they didn't find anything that they could work with, as long as I don't have the addresses for that one mistaken.
So, Captain Small, this is what I emailed you about.
Yeah, so I looked into it, man. We did have officers that responded there, and they didn't find any evidence that they were able to work with for a crime.
Well, they didn't attempt to actually enter our backyard or inspect the unit or get in touch with us when we were home as it was happening. So I don't really find that as like an appropriate response. They didn't try to investigate, and there was evidence that morning that they stayed in the unit, broke in, drank alcohol. And so the police could have caught them if they actually tried to investigate appropriately, and they didn't.
So for those kinds of cases, one of the things that helps the most, especially in multi-dwelling units like that, is if when whoever it is makes a call, let them know that you want to talk to the officer so they can get the finer details on it, because they don't always know the specifics about what part of the property it is that might be going on. Call.
I mean, I did tell dispatch to inspect the alley because our camera had caught it, and then our video camera never caught anyone actually entering the alley, and it should have caught a car, like a police car that would have gone by, or any police that tried to enter the backyard, and none of that was seen. So we don't think it was an appropriate investigation, but we'll definitely note it for future incidents.
For that one also, the dispatch did not assign that to a unit till, I believe, about 30 minutes at least after the call came in. So that may have something to do with part of that, because by the time the officers actually got the assignment from the dispatchers, a significant amount of time had gone by.
Okay, well, it sounds like they were in the unit for a significant amount of time partying. So I think in the future, it'd be great if there could be a note that they should still inspect, because this is a crazy amount of times for attempted burglaries in 10 days on what should be like a nice property.
I understand.
Hey,
we also
Captain,
have an officer that's going to be going out there tomorrow to talk with the manager of the property. We've been in contact with her today, so we're going to be over there tomorrow morning to meet with some people in particular about that.
Great, we
Hey,
appreciate that.
Captain Small, is this really an additional concern for the Office of Unified Communication, or no? If there's that time lag?
So a lot of factors go into that. I can't say why it took them the length of time it did to dispatch the assignment. It could be any number of things, and a lot of it has to do often with the way that the call taker prioritizes the assignments. That is handled by them. We don't have very much input into the way that they categorize the priority for them. But that does often have an effect on that.
So I'm going to reach back out to you for some specifics from your end, and I'm going to, because this is the twice that there has been this possible concern with Office of Unified Communication where the police time has been inappropriate. So I'll get some stuff from you, and then I'll reach out to the 311/911 director's office.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I have one question in the chat wondering who is in charge at 3D and can answer questions about past crimes. Should I put your contact information on there, or would that be someone else?
They can email me about it. It's without getting details about anything in particular. It might be it's a little hard for me to say exactly who anybody should talk to, but it's a place to start. We can do that.
Okay. And then one final question, which is one of the most dangerous traffic violations is speeding. How exactly does MPD focus on enforcement for those who are speeding?
We have that. We do that. It's everything from the traffic control devices that are put in place by the Department of Transportation to the photo ticketing that we have in various forms, mainly with the speed. We have the speed cameras that are throughout the city in areas that are identified by the Department of Transportation, and all of the data that they have about what locations it is that need that. And those are evaluated, I'm pretty sure on a pretty frequent basis, as people see when with the frequency that they add in new locations to it. And then also we have officers that have training for speed measurement instruments that go out and are able to issue citations to people on the spot when they're actually violating whatever the posted speed limit is.
Great, thanks. And one follow-up question: if someone's like just egregiously speeding, like can an officer pull someone over without using a speed measurement device if it's just clear that the vehicle is exceeding, any sort of reasonable speed?
So you can. The type of citation for that's issued is called unreasonable speed. It's a very low fine amount on that. And it's not very well, I'll say in practice and from my own experience, it's not very well received by the hearing examiners and when people decide to contest that citation. And that's mainly because the hearing examiners much prefer instrument to say something, this is what the speed was, we can show the calibration on it, et cetera, et cetera. So unfortunately, I think even when our officers give very good testimony as to why they know that the speed was excessive and dangerous, the examiners on their own make the decision that it doesn't meet their criteria.
Thank you so much. We have to move on to the next agenda item. Thank you, Captain Small.
No problem.
The next item is Moker's Mayor's Report. Kevin Pham. We have Kevin.
He was here and now he's not.
He's here and now he's not. He's chatting with me. He tried to chat with me. Yeah. Kevin, if you're there, we can't see you on the participant list, but we can see you. Oh, he's raised his hand. There he is.
Hello, can you hear me?
There you go. Okay. And I've turned you into a panelist, so you should be able to present.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, apologies for that. Thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time. For those who haven't met me yet, I am the Ward 6 liaison in the mayor's office. After this brief presentation, I'll drop my contact information. If you need to connect with any district agencies, I'm happy to assist you. I don't have that many updates, just three main ones regarding the COVID-19 situational update. As of today, the mask mandate has been dialed back. They're still required in any private businesses that want to require usage. Schools, libraries, nursing homes, shelters, public transit, and DC government facilities. Starting tomorrow at the DC COVID centers. The one in Ward 6 is right off of Barracks Row. You can get free KN95 masks that fits children. A DPW update is that residential street sweeping is resuming as of today. There's going to be a grace period from March 1st to March 14th, where vehicles parked in locations that are slated to be swept will be giving warnings. And then after March 14th, violators will be subject to $45 in fines. And then lastly, the mayor is still crafting her budget and will be presenting it to the council soon. The budget is expected to be submitted to council in late March or early April. And those are all my updates for now. I'm happy to take any questions. And if I can't answer them on the spot, then I'll take down your contact information and follow up with you after this meeting.
Great, thanks so much. Do we have any questions from commissioners about anything for the mayor?
Hey, Kevin. I know that you guys have been meeting regarding some of the Plaza West, some of the things that have been going on in Plaza West, and you've been representing the mayor's office there. And I appreciate you looping me in on some of the discussion. Is there anything you'd like to share publicly about sort of progress on that front? Because I know a few folks in my district are interested in that.
Sure. So I've been, we have a small working group consisting of the Mount Vernon Triangle, Sid, council member Charles Allen's office, as well as housing management at Plaza West. And so we've been meeting with interested community members bi-weekly, but the major, I think, points are that they had concerns regarding connecting individuals who are mental health like they access DBH resources, just finding the right contact for these folks when they're experiencing a mental health crisis. And so I invited a director from DBH to come and speak with the group. And now Plaza West Housing Management has her contact, and they can contact her directly for any behavioral health challenges. Also, Plaza West has been in communication with FEMS in terms of just making sure that all of their fire safety regulations are up to date. They also issued, there's a lot of there's a lot of items, which I'm happy to share if you send me an email, but there were concerns about parking and who's utilizing the indoor parking. The housing management issued new parking permits and have been towing people who are not, who do not have the correct permit. Those are some of the main things that come to mind. But I have like a running list of everything we've done. If you shoot me an email, I'm happy to share that with you as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? There we go. Okay, so I actually do have one. Thanks for joining us, Kevin. One question I have is, we keep hearing about gun violence at 7th and O, 8th and O Northwest City Market. We have bullet holes in the Giant grocery store windows. We have bullet holes in the Convivial restaurant windows. What is the mayor doing to address the constant loitering and drive-by shooting that occur on this block of O Street? It's clearly a problem. It's happened before. It will happen again. I'm curious about other structural issues, non-policing issues, strategies that could include things like closing the street or any sort of structural changes that could be made to try to reduce the likelihood of shootings here at this area. I don't expect that you would have an answer, but I would like you to bring this back to your leadership because the community is, we're done, and we're done with feeling like we're at risk here, in our own neighborhoods.
Thank you for raising up that issue. I think, as you mentioned, MPD plays one role in public safety. There are other agencies as well. We have violence interrupters as well as just DDoT designs that can contribute to public safety. I'm happy to connect with you offline after this meeting, and we can kind of brainstorm what message you want to craft, and I'm happy to pass that along to the mayor's leadership team.
Thanks so much. Oh, and Rochelle?
It's me.
Sorry.
So I will go along with what Michael said. We are done. Constituents of 6004 are done with this nonsense. There needs to be action taken. We are done. Okay. We had machine gun fire over in Alex's. I got a guy gunned down here at Dunbar High School. Enough. We're done.
Okay, and then one question from the community in the.
Oh, can
Alex,
I ask a question first?
Of course.
Actually, just one thing to note. I think that at a future ANC meeting, I would love to invite ONES and OAG to talk about the new violence interrupters program that supposedly are coming to 6E, but I haven't heard any information about the Shaw and Northwest One programs. But question for Kevin. Just procedurally, when the ANC has a resolution directed at the mayor, for example, we communicated 2 resolutions regarding the mayor's proposed FY23 budget. Where should those resolutions be directed? And should we expect responses when we send resolutions to the mayor's office?
Sure. So usually when you send a resolution, you're addressing a specific district agency, correct?
In this case, we were addressing the mayor regarding her proposed FY23 budget, which is, I mean, it's not out yet, but we were hoping to speak to at least 2 different issues that advocate for 2 different issues in that budget.
Okay. Did no one respond to that letter that you sent? Did no one confirm receipt of the letter?
Commissioner Eckler, I don't know that
I'm not exactly sure which.
the Shaw Skate Park restrooms and the S Street revitalization project.
I don't have the answer to that question. Perhaps we could just chat offline about that.
Okay.
Get verification whether or not we received confirmation of receipt.
Okay, and who should we be sending? Who should we be sending those resolutions to?
So it usually depends on which agency you're trying to address. So with the Shaw, excuse me,
Executive Office of the Mayor in this instance. I think the agencies are pretty good about responding, but
okay, cool. If you submit it to EOM and you didn't get a confirmation, could you just send that over to me and I'll work on it.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay. One question from the community in the Q&A. What is the right approach to handle misparked cars on street cleaning day?
Wait, can you repeat the question?
I'll read it verbatim. So after March 15, if cars are misparked on street cleaning day and block a street, will they be towed?
So right now, they would be subject to a $40 fine. I don't think they would necessarily be towed off the bat. The violation would be, the violator would be subject to a $40 fine.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the community? Raise your hand or press *9. This is questions for the mayor's office. Okay, hearing none. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Great. And I'll drop my contact in the chat if anyone wants to connect with me offline.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. And the next item is item 7, remarks from Ward 5 Councilmember Kenyon McDuffie. Councilmember McDuffie, are you here with us this evening? Looks like we have someone coming on.
Hi, good evening. A council member is on. I don't know if you need to promote him to panelist, but he was having trouble hearing you guys, but he could see you guys.
Okay. Let's see, I'm looking under K. Could you ask him to, looking under M.
Can you promote him to panelist?
I'm
That
not
might fix
seeing-
it.
I'm not seeing him. Can he raise his hand or is he on the phone on the phone?
No, he's in
Got
the
him, got
Zoom.
him, got him, got him.
Great, thank you. Okay,
And just a reminder, he has a hard stop at 7:30.
sounds
There's
good.
another meeting he's got to jump to.
Understood, okay.
I don't know if you all can hear me, but I can't hear anyone. I can't hear you all, and I've been trying to troubleshoot this for the last 10 minutes, but for some reason, my audio is not working at all, and I've logged off and on a few times. I'm gonna try to see if I can fix this. So if you don't mind, give me one more minute, please.
I would think if we hear him that he could hear us, right?
It's possible that his audio is either muted or that he could be connecting to a speaker that's in another room or something.
Hmm. But we heard him, so his audio has to be on, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well. Yeah,
Yeah, I tried raising my hand before I was a panelist, but I don't know how that works in the webinar here.
okay.
I think there's a dial-in number too, right?
There is, it was, I believe it was sent with a reminder message.
Okay, yeah, let me give him the dial-in number. Give me 1 second. Okay, he's just restarted his computer. Hopefully that'll work.
coming back.
Yep.
And
Now I can hear everybody now. I apologize for that. This is the same computer I just did an entire ledge meeting on today. So I'm not sure what happened to my laptop, but my apologies for the delay. I saw some conversations taking place. I didn't hear a word of what was being said. So if you all want me to jump in at particular places, let me know. And good evening.
yeah, good evening. Welcome to the call. I'm glad you were able to get your issues fixed. We actually have been kind of just waiting for you. So feel free to chime in, and you got, I guess you have a hard stop at 7:30, so take as much time as you need, but please leave a couple of minutes for questions at the end. So I'm gonna limit my remarks to just say that I want to welcome the folks who are now part of Ward 5 to Ward 5. I know there's some other folks who are going from Ward 6 to Ward 2, and there's been some changes made during redistricting. I look forward to getting to know you all to the extent I do not already know you, and having worked with you in the past, either as Ward 5 council member in some capacity, as chair of one of the multiple committees that I've chaired during my time on the council, which to date is 4. I had jobs of workforce development for about 6 months when I joined the council in May of 2012. Then I had government operations, where I did some things around campaign finance reform, and for 2 years, 2013 and 14, for one council period. I chaired the Public Safety Judiciary Committee for a council period from 2015 to 16, and since 2017, I've chaired the Committee on Business and Economic Development, where I have oversight of most of which gets discussed at the council with respect to business, economic development, and now tax policy as of about the last year and a half or so. And so I know we had a recent redistricting, and I think there may be some questions about that. And so as you mentioned, Chair, I would love to leave more time for you all to engage with me, ask me questions, share any concerns, any suggestions that you have for how we can work together in any ways that you all would like for me to be representing your interests at the Council of District of Columbia. We are just finishing up. I have my last hearing on performance oversight on Thursday. And then the mayor submits her budget in a couple of weeks, and we're going to jump right in at the council to our budget process. And so I'm looking forward to that. Maybe there's some priorities you want to share with me with respect to the upcoming budget. I look forward to hearing from you in that respect as well. But I would rather, with the few minutes we have, I would rather stop and let you all dive right in. Great, thank you so much. It looks like Commissioner Nigro has a question for you.
Hello, council member. I am live from 5. I am with your constituents here at the Mardi Gras party on the 200 block of Event Street. I have my beads on. I find your comments interesting because you are now well aware. Yesterday afternoon, I received a phone call from your office saying they did not think the 2 blocks I am sitting in are Ward 5. How utterly shameful. After that big deal that was made in December that they did not want to be Ward 5, and you insisted that these 2 blocks be Ward 5, but then fast forward to yesterday afternoon, your office did not think these 2 blocks are Ward 5. I almost predicted this. I am terribly concerned for these 2 blocks now. So help me out, council member. Are these 2 blocks Ward 5? I think they are. I had to send your staff member a map last night to prove that these blocks are now Ward 5. So help me out.
Is that a real question, Commissioner, or you just want to hear?
It is a real question. It is a real question. It is disturbing that your office did not know that these 2 blocks are Ward 5.
You want me to answer the question?
Go right ahead.
Okay, all right. So first of all, let me correct the record. I didn't insist that those 2 blocks be Ward 5. In fact, there was anything that I insisted, it was an amendment that would bring Ward 5 to make around the Armed Forces Retirement Home and the Washington Hospital Centers. I didn't propose that this be in Ward 5, but I embraced it because it was proposed in the committee of the whole. And I think that it made sense given what the committee of the whole stated about that being incorporated, those 2 blocks going down New Jersey Avenue, New York Avenue. Sure, it is Ward 5. Indeed, it is Ward 5. I'm familiar with it. When things have happened, I found myself in those blocks and in those wards. I'm well aware of the church that's there. I visited. I've worshiped there. When there was a homicide on New York Avenue, I showed up. Right, and so I don't know what you are referring to in terms of having to explain something to my staff. If that is actually a fact, I regret that you had that experience. And if you are actually open to working with me, then I'm here to serve. I've been serving for 10 years now, and we may not always agree, but it is my job to represent the interests of everybody within the ward. And now those 2 blocks are within the ward. And so I prided myself in building coalitions to get things done at the Council of the District of Columbia. And so I'm not gonna sit here and go back and forth with you. Perhaps you didn't want to be a part of Ward 5. The reality is that there are 2 blocks that are now a part of Ward 5 that weren't over the last several years, but in fact had been previously in some iteration of the ward boundaries over the course of the district's history. And so let's figure out how to work together because that's what I'm about, building coalitions, working with people, getting things done. We've got some really serious intractable issues that are impacting those 2 blocks, just like it's impacting adjacent blocks in other parts of Ward 5 and other parts of the city for that matter. So if your job, if your interest is to work with me, then you should know that you have a really ready, willing, and able partner in that work.
Yeah, can I jump in for a second? Because I did call Commissioner Nigro, and Commissioner Nigro, I explained to you that I had not been involved in the redistricting. We have a very heavy caseload for Ward 5 constituent services. And I told you I had to talk to our ledge team, and I did get that information this morning. And I did share that with you today.
And once you get to know,
Councilmember, I'm not going to dilly dally around. That's fine.
Once you all get to know Kelly Sislo,
you know what?
Once you all get to know Kelly Sislo, what you're going to find is you won't find anybody more dedicated to the District of Columbia doing constituent services than Kelly Sislo. I would ask you to give her an opportunity to work with you. And if you don't believe that, ask around and talk to some of the other commissioners in other parts of Ward 5. She's dedicated to her job. She may not know a boundary, but we'll work on that. Just give her a shot.
I don't have a problem with Kelly. I like Kelly. Kelly does her job. But I'm telling you, I do not want these 2 blocks ignored. And that's going to be, I don't want that to be a problem. These constituents have concerns. There are safety concerns over here. I advocate for more police. As you know, we had a homicide on the steps of Dunbar. Some guy was gunned down on the steps of Dunbar High School a couple days ago. So please help these constituents. I was concerned, and I do work with people, as many of my constituents know, as many external stakeholders know. But after that big hullabaloo in December about these 2 blocks, and to get that shocking phone call yesterday was not too pleasing. So, but now that
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're referring to, though. Like,
that's all right.
What is it happened in December that you're referring to? You never
we do not.
That I'm assisted for those 2 blocks to be in your ward. Let's work together.
That's okay, Councilmember. It's okay. We're going to move forward. But it was an interesting. It was interesting yesterday for 24 hours about these 2 blocks. But that's okay. We will move forward. Me and my constituents, my 197 constituents, will move forward in partnership with you and your office.
Well, that's a great way to end that because I would have loved for you to have started off in partnership and not to point out something that I'm not sure even ever happened in December. And so what I'm not going to do.
So Councilmember, I have many emails that you were CC'd on. It's okay. We're going to move forward. We're going to move forward.
Here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to start off a relationship with this type of back and forth. What I would like to be able to do is to work together with you. I think you just ended your commentary by saying you want to work together. And what you should know is that's what I'm about. And so I will put whatever happened in the past in December that caused you some level of angst. Hopefully you can put that in the past. When violence happens in the District of Columbia, I show up, particularly in Ward 5. I show up in many cases when it doesn't happen in Ward 5 because that is one of the most pressing issues facing residents in the District of Columbia. And I'm no stranger to trying to put in place comprehensive solutions to address it. And I know that you care about these issues. And so I want to work with you and I want to work with the rest of the commissioners as well. So thank you for that.
So I'll ask a question, which is, what's the status of the Ward 5 ANC redistricting task force? And have you considered the possibility of having those 2 blocks that are now in Ward 5 actually continuing in Rochelle's district, Commissioner Nigro's district, in what may end up being 2G? Any comments on the redistricting process?
I'm open to that. I'll tell you though, Commissioner, I've not been too far in the weeds just yet. What I'd like to do and what I've done is to empower the co-chairs of the commission at the appropriate time when they have a set of draft boundaries. I'm going to weigh in. I don't want to put my thumb on the scale at this point. I think it's important to let them do their business and then for them to make a suggestion. But I'm open ultimately to what they propose and maybe having that, what I think has been done in Ward 4 and Ward 3 in the past. So I'm open to that. I don't think that should be off the table, but I also don't want to preempt. I don't want to preempt the process that's being engaged in right now with the task force.
So council member, let me inform you that that option is actually on the table right now. That these 2 blocks would be part of the single member district that crosses New Jersey Avenue. And so the heads of the Ward 2 committee and the Ward 5 committee are kind of like coming together at the table about this idea.
It's great. I'm glad to hear that.
And Phil Mendelson likes it. So there you go.
Okay, great. So with a couple minutes left before your hard stop in 3 minutes, do we have any questions from the other commissioners? Yeah.
I have one. Councilmember Duffy, thank you for attending our meeting. I know that you have been a supporter of violence interrupter programs in the past and that you are very aware, obviously, of the OAG office's Cure the Streets program. It was recently announced that Cure the Streets will have a new focus on that kind of splits between Ward 6, Northwest 1, Sursum Corda area, and Ward 5, Ivy City. Those 2 neighborhoods aren't exactly contiguous, but will you push for additional budget in the FY23 budget so that Cure the Streets can set up, or OAG can set up Cure the Streets focused on those 2 neighborhoods separately rather than trying to somehow weave together 2 non-contiguous neighborhoods?
Yeah, I would have to see exactly what you saw as it was proposed, because just the sound of that doesn't make sense in terms of how that geography plays out. But you are right, Commissioner. I've been a huge proponent of the Cure Violence model. In fact, some of you all may be familiar with the NEAR Act. It stands for the Neighborhood Engagement Achieve Results Act. It's a public health-based approach to crime prevention and intervention that is on a parallel track with law enforcement. It does not replace or supplant the great work that NPD does when they do it well. They don't always do it well, but when they do it well, it's not designed to supplant that. It is something that's on a parallel track. It has over 20 titles and subtitles. If anybody is not familiar with it and like information in that, we can make sure that Kelly gets it to them. But the OAG's Cure the Streets program is they implement the Cure Violence model, which is part of the NEAR Act. The Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, which falls under the executive and not the OAG, also implements aspects of the NEAR Act. What I would like to do, Commissioner, is to really have there be better coordination between those 2 entities. I've really pushed for that. I've worked directly with Carl Racine and his team of violence interrupters, but I've also worked with Dale McFadden and his team. The challenge, which I'd like to see eliminated, is that the great work being done by the OAG, when they identify people who are likely to commit gun violence or be the victims, and they're able to intervene, maybe have them squash a beef or put a gun down, they don't have the resources at their disposal to connect those individuals with and make sure they put them on a pathway to success. They don't have the same resources that the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement has. And we need to see a better marriage between those 2 agencies so that any young person, or in fact, they're not always young, any person who they're able to, the violence interrupters are able to intervene with, gets the supports and services they need. Because when they are identified through the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, they get paired with the Pathways program, which is a months-long program where they get workforce development training. They get a stipend as well. And when they successfully complete it, they get subsidized employment. They have a mentor that they get throughout that process. They get trauma-informed counseling along the way if they need it. And so there's a myriad of things that the individuals who are identified to be pathways participants get that the individuals who come through the OAG don't get. And I will tell you, the OAG's violence interrupters, they have some of the best violence interrupters, but those folks should have more tools at their disposal. So the short answer, what I could have said at the very beginning is, yes, I'm going to advocate for more funding. In fact, I'm going to be sending a letter to the mayor, if not tonight, because I have to do one final proof, tomorrow morning, advocating, amongst other things, advocating for more supports for that work.
Thank you so much. Any other questions from commissioners? Councilmember, do you have a second, just in case there's a question from the community?
Sure, please,
So do we have-
please.
do we have any community-
I apologize again for the delay, so I don't want to take that up your time.
Any community questions, either raise your hand or if you're on the phone, please hit *9 on your phone. Any additional questions from the community? Looks like you're in the clear. What is this? Okay. All right. Well, looks like you're in the clear. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. Sorry about your technical problems, but
Yeah. And I look forward to joining you all again, Mr. Chair. And obviously this won't be the last time, and I look forward to coming back. If there are any concerns you all have, Kelly's going to stay on. Please make sure that you share them with Kelly Sislo, and we look forward to that partnership. Thank you all, and have a great evening.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, thanks so much. On to the next agenda item, item 8, Ward 2, Councilmember Brooke Pinto's office with an update. Brian Romanowski. Brian, are you with us? There you are. Okay.
Hello, hi. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, I will try to be brief tonight. Good to see you all. Our office has now completed SMD walks with Commissioners Nigro and Lopez. Commissioner Pinto was able to join the walk this past Friday with Commissioner Lopez, so thank you for giving us a great tour of 6E02 and helping us understand the various issues you all are facing. Commissioner Eichler and Wiggins, we look forward to scheduling tours with you both soon now that it's warming up. We're ready to hit the streets with you, whichever way you choose, any means of transportation that you choose. Councilmember Pinto was also happy to see many of you at the groundbreaking for Parcel 42 on Saturday. That was a very exciting event and morning. So I know others touched on this already, but this week marks the end of agency performance oversight hearings that we've been having at the council for the last 6 weeks. Mayor Bowser will then submit her budget to the council around March 16th, and the council will have their first vote on May 10th. So it's about to be budget season, as the Councilmember McDuffie just mentioned. If you do have any budget requests, you can still email Ella Hansen on our staff, and I'll make sure her email is in the chat. I know that representatives from the Ward 2 Redistricting Task Force are going to be speaking soon at this meeting, so I will just thank them for their hard work and service and let them tell you what they've been up to. But all of those meetings are public, so keep that in mind that you can attend those meetings. The reopened DC alcohol amendment passed its first vote today with the council and will have its final vote in 2 weeks. And among other things that it does, the most relevant, I think, to Shaw is that it extends the streeteries until 2023 and allows them to stay up year round. So I know that's a big deal, as this is a big change from pre-pandemic times for a lot of us. There's a new speed camera coming to 9th Street Northwest between N and O Streets Northwest. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully you're not speeding around there, but be on the lookout for it. And then just a few things based on some things that came up already. I just want to let you all know that improving public safety is Councilmember Pinto's top priority. She and I share your anger, and we know that the DC government has to do more to keep all residents safe. In her budget request to the mayor, she requested additional funding for the violence interruption programs and for out of school time programs to address root causes of gun violence and crime. Commissioner Lopez, I'm going to try to get you an answer on when the program will begin its work in Shaw. The council member also requested an expansion of MPD's bike and foot patrols and is supporting bolstering the MPD cadet training program so that MPD has the officers they need and that they're based in the communities that they serve and are culturally competent. There was also a question about street sweeping and cars being towed. So I just want to let you know what the Moker said was correct. But after March 15th, if there are any issues with cars not moving, you can submit a 311 request for parking enforcement. And then if they don't come out quickly or if they don't come at all, just please email me. I'll put my email in the chat too. And I can talk to DPW and flag specific blocks for them or locations or a specific car that's been there for months. That happens a lot. And they're pretty responsive once we get involved. But they also are pretty responsive to the 311s, I have to say. I think that's all for me. I'm just going to post a lot in the chat, but happy to take any questions.
Any questions from any commissioners?
You don't have a chat, do you?
We have a Q&A. You can type it in as a question, and then I can just publish it. And we'll do on the other side, I think. Seeing no questions from the commissioners. Brian, I think you did address this briefly, at least a part of it, but there is a question in the Q&A for you stating that now that CM Pinto is overseeing Shaw, what is her focus when it comes to supporting our neighborhood, and what does she see as the most pressing issues? You mentioned public safety earlier. What else is on the top of her list?
So public safety is always number one, and that's Ward 2 wide. I think every single ANC is having similar issues, although maybe worse off in 6E, I have to say. So that's number one focus. Her number two focus is addressing homelessness, which I know it's a big issue for parts of 6E. So definitely working on that. Business recovery and growth, always, especially with the pandemic, and making sure that we don't just have a lot of vacant storefronts or businesses. So addressing that as well. So those are probably the top three. And then always happy to hear from all of you in Shaw. I mean, transportation, we're trying to make, especially areas around schools safer. Commissioner Eichler, as I know you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of bills coming through the council this spring and getting their first hearings this month, now that it's March. So that's exciting, and hopefully they move quickly, as I think they have unanimous support, the Walk Without Worry and the Safe Routes to School acts. So those are two big ones that hopefully will have a positive impact on transportation issues in Shaw and pedestrian and biker safety. Yeah, so those are the ones that come to the top of my mind.
Great. So if there's no additional questions from the community, I will thank you, Brian, for coming out this evening, and look forward to working with you, continue to work with you here and within Shaw. Thanks so much. Okay, the next item, item 9, report from Council Member Charles Allen, Ward 6, Representative Naomi Mitchell. Hi, Naomi.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. You hear me?
You're in. Great, thank you.
Okay. I have to tell you the challenge I'm dealing with tonight. I'm listening to both your meeting on one phone and the Ward 6 Redistricting Committee meeting on the other. They're going on at the same time. And of course, you all know that the Ward 6 overall territory increased so significantly that over the last 10 years that we're probably going to wind up with a whole bunch of additional ANC SMDs, because just to make all those numbers work. So we're going to wind up with some very large ANCs in some parts of the ward. I am listening at they're struggling with this. And so I think they plan to not have any extra meetings, but from what I'm hearing, they're probably going to have an extra meeting to resolve some of the issues that they're dealing with. One of the interesting things that I heard a shade of in your meeting about mixed ANCs between two wards. And I think I can say that the Ward 8 council member and the Ward 6 council member have, I think, tentatively agreed to such a mixed joint, or whatever you might call it, on the Navy Yard area, where they would bring some of the people across the river to join with some of the folks that are already in the areas ANC. That's the Navy Yard. That's where the baseball stadium is, and predominantly lots of businesses, apartment complexes, not much in the way of family size homes. And so it's a unique kind of situation. But we've already had our staff in Ward 6 have had some transition meetings with the constituent service staff from Ward 8 to kind of help introduce and answer their questions. And so they have some focuses on grocery store, working more with residents around food, nutrition, around maybe sales and things, because those are initiatives that they've been working on in Ward 8. And so they're really hoping that some folks will intermingle in their new ward. I don't know what else I can say about that at this point, because it's pretty rough going on here on this other meeting. But I did hear the comment on the violence interrupters and the budget. As you know, that's under Charles's committee, and I'm absolutely convinced he already is proposing a significant increase in those programs in the budget that he'll be sending up for the mayor. So folks won't have much of a battle on that one. Everybody understands that. That's got to be one of the alternatives. And what the councilman was saying about the AGs is surprising me, that they don't have many resources to do. I've never quite understood why they were two separate programs, but notwithstanding, I really thought they were equally resourced. But I'm sure that issue has gotten to the council member. If not, I'll remind him from what I heard tonight. But I'm sure that Councilmember McDuffie is making that clear in his role, that he needs to see more of that. I don't have a lot else to say. I think Charles had his last committee oversight hearing today, and so they'll be moving into the budgets, transmissions to the mayor, and they'll be on schedule. This is what else? I can't say anything about elections. Let's see, what else can I talk to you about? We're experiencing a lot of pain with the losses that we're taking in the ward. I think we're losing something close to 20,000 people. So all of our corners are losing people, which is making our redistricting so difficult. Yours and C are a lot simpler than B and D, who grew to some extent 10 times what they were before. And so they're coming up with 9, 10 member ANCs and additional ANCs. So when this is laid down, I think we're all very happy, because it's very, very painful for everyone who's had these long relationships. Your ward, for example, we only had the last 10 years. And so we had to make all those transitions. And now we feel like we're your family, you're a part of our family. So now we're losing a good part of you. So this is not fun. This is really agonizing. But of course, the council member will get to look at it all when it's finally done by the committee and see what makes sense. At any rate, I'm not sure how long we're supposed to be relating to you. I think you're going to stay as you are until end of the year, when you then split into these new boundaries. That's correct, right?
I'm actually not an expert on that. I think it happens sooner because people need to live in the ward that they're running for, or they need to live.
That's correct. In June. In June.
So it has to be June or July.
Exactly. In that regard, there's another little bit of legislation that passed today out of Charles's committee that you might find interesting. They had an emergency legislation that allowed DC teachers and staff to run for the State Board of Education. Right now, the charter boards can already do that, but the DC Public Schools staff cannot. And it makes sense that if you're living with the boards, which is a nonpartisan board, and they're setting policies and standards, that people who work in the system probably ought to have some role somewhere in there to help shape that. So this makes that citywide now. Both the public schools and the public charter schools will be able to have people sitting on the board. There's another law that passed this week that may or may not be of significance to you, but it has to do with people who get vouchers for housing and often are disallowed because of poor credit or poor payments. But this law says that if that was before they got the voucher, it can't be held against them. So Charles committee enacted that today, which gives people a clean slate once they get the voucher to establish a good record and not to be turned down because they had that record before they got the help. So is there anything else that you all think that I might know something about?
I think this is pretty good. Do any of the commissioners have any specific questions for Naomi Mitchell for Charles Allen's office?
I'm recognizing how long you've been at this already.
Okay.
Okay, hi, folks. Glad to see folks here, folks.
Okay. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Naomi.
Bye-bye.
Have a great
I'll
evening.
get back to the other meeting.
Good luck.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks so much. So we are now moving on to the next item. Thank you, Naomi. Moving on to item 10, which is support for Delana request to expand sidewalk cafe seating. We have Alex Padro and also Matt Minora. There's Matt. And Alex bubbling through. So this is the one item from our Alcohol Beverage Committee. Alex, are you with us?
Sorry, seemed to have been a lag there.
Okay, you are here. Thank you so much.
Yes, so this is a request for a substantial change to the license at Delana at 476 K Street Northwest. Specifically, an increase in seating for the sidewalk cafe for the establishment from 35 to 80 seats. The committee did meet and received a presentation by the applicants last Thursday and voted to recommend unanimously support for both the stipulated and permanent substantial changes.
Thanks so much for that update. Mr. Minora, do you have anything you want to share with the group today?
No, I think Mr. Padro really did a great job explaining everything. We just really appreciate the ANC's continued support.
Sounds good. Okay, so do we have a motion?
Can I actually, Matt Minora, if you could just talk a little bit, just for the benefit of the public about
sure.
the, kind of what you're proposing, and please.
So actually, I do want to make a correction on the placard says we're going from 35 seats to 80 seats. We're actually going from 45 to 80, so it's an increase of 35 seats overall. When we initially had the application, we were limited to 45 seats on the sidewalk cafe. However, that's for the ABC license application, excuse me. But the DDOT application for the actual sidewalk cafe permit allowed for up to 80 seats. So in the interim, we've been using the expanded temporary program to allow for Delana to be operating with this 80 seats from the beginning. So functionally, the neighborhood will know no difference, but eventually this temporary program might end or be curtailed or something like that. So we're trying to just have the ABC license now be in sync with what's been happening since the beginning of operations.
Great, thanks. Commissioner Parley, do you have any additional comments?
Yeah, I'll just a few things, and I don't know if the commissioners, to what extent they remember this, but there was a somewhat of a protracted settlement agreement discussion with Delana, or it was intense maybe leading up to their original settlement agreement. And I'll say that there were a few people across the street who were concerned with noise, and I'm not aware of any complaints about noise that have made it to me or, in any way. So just want to say, like, Delana has been a good neighbor, and effectively this change, as I understand it, would just make permanent some of the temporary things that they've been operating under. So I've got no objections to making that permanent. I missed the ABC license committee. I had a conflict, but Rochelle, do you have anything to add? Because I kind of asked you to cover that for me.
Nope. So I am all in favor, and they answered any questions that we had. And as you said, it's the same thing they've been doing since they put it out there. So it's fine. And as I noted when I talked to Matt during the call, that there haven't been any complaints yet. Not yet. No, we
Hopefully it'll stay
don't
that
want
way.
any, right, Matt? And
Exactly.
Right, Matt, we
Hopefully
don't want
it'll
any
be
complaints.
not just yet, but never.
Great. So, do we have any additional comments from the commissioners? Any questions or feedback from the community? Press *9 if you're on the phone.
I do see one in the Q&A there.
Oh, what's going on here? Well, the question is there a plan for noise control for the neighbors?
Well, actually, the design of the patio that's going through DDOT now does actually, not saying it's still an unenclosed sidewalk cafe, but it does have a bit of a covering. It's a pergola, so there should be even more noise mitigation efforts and factors that there are currently on the sidewalk cafe. So if there haven't been any problems, there'll be even less problems once the construction's finished.
Great, thanks for that update. Any additional questions from the community? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Yeah, I can make the motion. I move that ANC 6E support Delena's request to expand sidewalk cafe seating and the request for the stipulated license, and that we communicate that support to Abra.
I second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none opposed and no any abstentions? Okay, so with that, motion passes 6 to 0. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, commissioners.
Thanks for joining us this evening. Thanks, Alex. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is actually not even there. So moving on to item 12, support for speed humps on the 400 block of Warner Street. This is an item from the TAC, Alex Lopez.
Okay. So Warner Street is one block street in 6002 that runs between New Jersey Avenue and 5th Street Northwest. DDOT categorizes it as a local street and is therefore eligible for speed humps. Several neighbors brought this issue to me and then to the TAC, requesting that speed humps be added to Warner Street to slow drivers and discourage cut-through traffic between New Jersey Avenue and 5th Street. There was broad support when I raised this on the Warner Street Facebook group. Not unanimous support, but overwhelming support. Additionally, we recently installed, or DDOT recently installed speed humps on 5th Street between Q and R, which has significantly improved the issue of driver speeding and stop sign adherence on that block. So we have every reason to believe that speed humps on Warner Street would similarly address some of the speeding issues. For these reasons, the TAC recommended that ANC 6E support a draft resolution that was circulated with the commission to request that DDOT install speed humps on the 400 block of Warner Street Northwest.
Okay, thank you for that update. Do we have any comments from the commissioners? Do we have any comments from the community? Press *9. Oh, there's something in the Q&A. Just a comment in the Q&A says the poll said poll was 80% of neighbors support speed humps. So thank you for that. Any additional comments from the community? Okay, so hearing none, can I get a motion?
Yeah, I'll move that ANC 6E request that DDOT install speed humps on the 400 block of Warner Street Northwest.
I second.
Okay, great. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion from the commissioners? Hearing none. All in favor, please vote by saying aye.
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 Okay, looks like.
Aye.
Okay, do we have any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, so we are at 6-0-0 for Warner Street. Thank you. And then there, I believe that's the only item from the TAC this time around. Is that correct, Alex?
Yes.
Okay, great. So moving on to, thank you so much. Moving on to item 13. Commissioner Parley, would you like to take the floor?
Yeah, sure. Let me see if I can share my screen here. I can run through the resolution. Okay. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, I'll just try to run through this quickly for the benefit of the public. And I appreciate the commissioner discussion. A few people reached out to me as well to discuss and the conversation we had in the thread. And I was happy, by the way, to hear some of the comments from the various council staff and council member that we heard tonight. It feels like a lot of the themes that came up in those discussions are sort of reflected in this resolution. So sort of happy to hear that. But, I'll just run through this briefly here. This resolution is addressed to the mayor, the attorney general, the MPD chief, and then our three ANC 6E council members. And it's focused on, calls for significant investments in public safety for this upcoming budget season. This first paragraph here talks about our votes. This is sort of standard language, but then as we get into it, this resolution talks a little bit about the trends for homicides in the District of Columbia. Trends have been, the trend lines for homicides in DC have been steadily increasing, about 27 additional homicides year over year on average in the last 5 years. And if the trend holds, we'll have more than double the amount of homicides this year that we did in 2017, just 5 years later. So it's clear that public safety concerns are trending in the wrong direction, and we are looking for the city to act on that. And so, after we talk about the statistics a little bit, the next section here talks about, what can the city do to reduce crime? And we lead from the front here talking about long-term solutions to crime, things like increasing affordable housing, strengthening schools, investing in rehabilitation programs. These are the ways that the district can invest in social programs and in the long run, reduce crime. We also talk about just, in the context of, the significant trend we're seeing right now, that the district needs to focus on short-term solutions. And the two I sort of have laid out here include violence interruption programs and supporting MPD resources to reduce gun violence, including visible foot patrols. And so, in this way, I'm trying to write this letter in a way that talks about both the long-term and the short-term solutions. At the end here, I point out law enforcement officers are not the sole solution to reducing crime, but they play an important role in the effort. And they should, if the council is considering adding MPD officers, that absolutely should be on the table. And that's some of the language that we also heard from the council member and the staffs earlier today. And then Michael Eichler, of course, would sign this letter as commission chair. So I'll bring this down. And I know a few commissioners had comments on this in our discussion. So, I defer back to you, Michael. If you want to say anything, or we could have a commissioner conversation here.
Thanks for bringing this to the commission for our consideration, circulating it well in advance, and promoting a healthy email conversation about it. I would also just encourage you to include some of the citations that I had emailed to you that refer to a variety of studies that show that police presence does actually reduce crime. Of course, a handful of studies may not be conclusive, but at least there is evidence that shows that increasing in police presence and police force not only can reduce crime, but it also can reduce police violence, considering that less overtime means that officers are less exhausted and more emotionally capable of deciding whether or not to use force. I think it's important consideration to acknowledge here. But I also know there's a variety of opinions on the commission, and I'd like to invite anyone else who would like to speak to the letter, to suggest additional changes to it. feel free to speak up. So do we have any, looks like Commissioner Nago.
Okay, so I think Patrick's letter is fantastic. And I appreciate that he added the part about the food patrols. And I'm all an advocate about the food patrols that we currently don't have. So I've been talking about it for years. So good job, Patrick. A+. I'm for it.
I actually saw some foot patrol on near Howard Theater today.
Great.
Okay, well, that's not down in my area.
So is any other comments or feedback from commissioners?
So I read a statistic recently that the cost of funding one additional DC police officer is the same as what it would cost to end chronic homelessness for 3 individuals in DC. And I think that when we're thinking about budgets and when we're thinking about how to allocate what is scarce resources, it's critical that we not default to strategies that have proved ineffective in the past. We know that DC has one of the highest rates of incarceration in the nation. We know that DC has one of the highest ratios of police officers to district residents of any jurisdiction in the United States. And we also know that police are not particularly effective at preventing violent crime. Police are good at, police are good at responding to crime once it occurs. But as we've seen in, for example, the 600 block of O Street Northwest, where last summer there were manned police cruisers parked on that block the nights that there were fatal, they weren't fatal, but the nights that there were drive-by shootings on that block. And so the approaches that we have, but yeah, I think that we need to get a lot more creative. And I do appreciate that Commissioner Parlay includes a more holistic discussion of the types of investments that are needed here. And I do want to acknowledge, I really agree with Commissioner Eichler, something you said earlier in the meeting, where we need to think about other tactical measures, such as potentially closing blocks to traffic or doing things that will, in the very short time, tactically reduce harm while we build towards breaking the cycle of violence and breaking the cycle of harm. I think that, Patrick, after I sent that initial email, I did read through the resolution a couple more times. I think that I appreciate that it is even-handed, and I appreciate that you do acknowledge that there's a wide variety of things that we need to be investing in to create a coherent approach to public safety, which is what I want. And I do believe that the police are part of that, but I think that we have we have barely even scratched the surface in terms of alternatives to policing for creating true public safety and creating true true restorative justice in our community. So just to acknowledge that what I thought you wrote an even-handed resolution, I will be voting to support it tonight. And I look forward to working with you and the other commissioners on issues related to public safety, especially trying to address, make longer-term commitments and investments in our community that break the cycle of violence.
Thanks for that comment. Just for point of clarity, did I hear won't be supporting it or will be supporting it?
I will be.
Okay, thank you. It was like a little glitch just as you said that one word that I couldn't tell which way it went. Okay, so any additional comments from commissioners?
Just as I did when I emailed back in reference to this letter, I am in total support of the letter, and I definitely believe we need to have some creative ways to reach the minors across the city, with so much of the violence being very young teens. We have to find a way to condemn the violence throughout the city in all 8 wards. And I'm a strong supporter of this letter. And whatever I can do, please include me in all things moving forward for the safety of the city. Yes.
Great. Thanks, Denise. Any further comments from commissioners? Okay, do we have any comments from the community, questions or comments from the community? If you're on the phone and you wish to voice your opinion, please dial *9 to raise your hand. Okay, it looks like there are no comments from the community on this letter. So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that ANC 6E support the resolution titled Call for Significant Investments in Public Safety in the FY23 DC budget, and transmit the resolution to the mayor, the attorney general, the MPD chief, and council members Allen, Pinto, and McDuffie.
Second.
I second. Frank second.
Seconds and thirded. Okay. Do we have any additional discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Do we have any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, hearing none, the motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much for that, Commissioner Parley. Look forward to signing that this evening, I hope. Okay, on to item 14, resolution recognizing the Columbian Harmony Cemetery in 6002. Commissioner Lopez.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So I am very proud to bring this item before the ANC. It is an item that I think is very well timed. Unfortunately, we did just miss the tail end of Black History Month, but there is a piece of history that in 6002 that is unacknowledged and largely unknown by residents and neighbors in the community. It's that in the square 475, which is a block in 6002 bordered by Florida Avenue, 5th Street and S Street and 6th Street Northwest, between 1829 and 1859, there was a Black cemetery located there. It was called the Harmonium Cemetery. And it was a cemetery that was established by an early mutual aid society of free Blacks in the District of Columbia called the Columbian Harmony Society. This was one of the few places in the district at the time where free Blacks could be, Washingtonians could be buried, could have a dignified interment. And it existed, as I said, in our neighborhood between 1828 and 1829 and 1859, when it was required to move out of the central district because there was a law saying that cemeteries cannot be in the central area. The cemetery records from this period are scant, but we do believe that there are several leaders of the Black community that were interred here. And I'll just go through 3 of them very quickly. George Bell, who was an education activist and co-founder of the Bell School, which was the first school open to Black children free and enslaved in DC. Reverend John F. Cook Sr., a pioneer in the fields of education, religious, and civil affairs, and the first Black Presbyterian minister in DC, and the founder of the 15th Street Presbyterian Church, which exists to this day. And William Costin, who was an activist who challenged in court the racist DC Black codes and won his trial in Costin versus Washington in 1821. In addition to leaders in the Black community, there were also about 25% of the lots were reserved for people that could not otherwise afford burial. So the cemetery really did serve all aspects of the community. There, as I mentioned at the top of the introduction, there are currently no commemorative markers or acknowledgement of any kind that there was a cemetery located in this site. And so what this resolution that I've shared with the commission seeks to do was, one, officially recognize that have the ANC officially recognize the cemetery and why it's so important that we have this recognition. And then two, it requests the mayor, let me just pull up the resolution so I get this right. It requests that the mayor sponsor commemorative work to be installed at the original site of the former Harmonium Cemetery, and that this commemorative work recognize the significance of this historic Black cemetery and the role that the Colombian Harmony Society played in creating a dignified and affordable cemetery for the interment of free Blacks in the District of Columbia. And then further, because there is about to be a big DDOT capital project on S Street Northwest, that ANC 6E would advise DDOT to work with probably the Commemorative Works Commission, but work with the mayor's office more broadly to incorporate a commemorative work honoring the Harmonium Cemetery in this location as part of the S Street revitalization project.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Alex. Do we have any questions from the commissioners? I heard a rustle, but I don't think that's a question. Okay, so it looks like if we have any questions or comments from the community, please feel free to raise your hand. If you're on the phone, dial *9, and we do have a hand raised already from Mr. Padro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of Shaw Main Streets, I would like to offer our organization's support for the resolution. Shaw Main Streets has recently concluded a 6-month project documenting the Harmonium, and those results will shortly be available online at a website at harmoniumshawdc.com. And we also are exploring a number of different options for interpretation and recognition of this important but neglected piece of our African-American history. So we look forward to working with the Commission on future opportunities for recognition for the internees that may still also be located on the site. There have been reports of human remains found on the site after the relocation of the cemetery. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Mr. Padro. Real quick question for me, just for you. Are you aware of what types of exhibits or memoriam might be appropriate for this location? Would it be like a sidewalk?
Yeah, so we are going to be proposing a bronze relief medallions to be installed in the pavement, and also interpretive signage, wayfinding signs, and the same type of signs that the National Park Service installs at National Historic Sites to be able to provide information about both the Harmonium, its internees, and also the issue of the relocation of African American cemeteries.
Thanks for that. We also have another question from Gretchen Wharton. I'm going to allow you to talk. You there, Gretchen?
Thank you. Yes, so much. Thanks, Michael. I just want to speak in support of this resolution. As a resident of not only Shaw, but I grew up on the block where the Harmonium Cemetery was actually located. And I remember when my mother telling me when they purchased the house, that the person from whom they purchased it told them stories of how when the basement was excavated, there were so many bones and things that were found there. So this is very real. And I still live on S Street. I look at this area every day, and I'm just so sorry there's nothing there to commemorate it. So I'm in total support of this.
Thanks for that feedback. Do we have any additional comments or questions from community members? Okay.
Before I make a resolution, I just want to acknowledge the work that Gretchen and Alex Padro have put in. Gretchen Wharton for bringing this issue to my attention initially, and Alex Padro for his help with historical research and documentation.
Thanks for that.
So I would like to move that ANC 6E adopt the resolution recognizing the Harmonium Cemetery. The resolution was circulated with the commission, I think over the last week. Commissioner Eichler, would you like me to read the resolution, or?
I think you summarized the resolution already in your earlier comments. Does anyone feel the need to hear it read into the record, or would like it to be? Okay. So hearing none, I think
in that case, I'm going to move that the ANC 6E adopt the resolution as transmitted, and communicate that resolution to Mayor Bowser.
Great.
Second.
Okay. So moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? I'm seeing none. Let's up for a vote. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any abstentions? Sorry. Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay. So the motion passes with 6 yes votes. Thank you so much for bringing that to our attention, Alex. Very important acknowledgement of our history here in this community. Okay, so let's move on to the next item, which is an update from the Ward 2 ANC Redistricting Task Force. Sorry, I have a hand up. I'm not sure if that was on the old item or the new one. I'm gonna allow Baron to talk briefly. Do you have a comment on the last item, Baron? And no. Okay. Baron, did you have a comment on the last item, or is it you're here for the next item? Okay. So we're going to assume it's the next item and move on with Gretchen. Gretchen, how are you doing this evening? Thanks twice in a row.
I'm well, thank you. Thank you so much for permitting us to join. Is Ankit on? Because Ankit and I were sharing this presentation and he was going to start off.
Let's see.
Yep. Ankit has the same.
Saw his name earlier.
Yep. Okay, we've got an Ankit on the call here.
Okay.
Okay.
And I think you were going to share the screen, Michael.
Yep. Let me just go to my other thing over here and share my screen and share this. Share button. Look at that. Okay. Is Ankit appropriately unmuted? Okay, welcome.
If you guys are ready, I can get started.
Yeah, we're ready
Hey,
to
everyone.
go. Thanks so much.
So my name is Ankit Jain, and Gretchen will be presenting as well. And we're both members of the Ward 2 ANC Redistricting Task Force, which is redrawing the boundaries for Ward 2 ANCs. And so we wanted to discuss what is going on. We're both from what is currently ANC 6E, and will move into Ward 2, may become ANC 2G. And so we wanted to discuss kind of what's going on and get people's thoughts and understand, ideas about what we want to see in our ANC redistricting. So do we want to move to the next slide? Thank you. And so here are the members of the ANC redistricting task force. You can just read them right there. I think we can move to the next slide. And so we have been having weekly meetings. So we just got out of a meeting that just happened today. We're meeting next on March 8th. It's going to be all the meetings start at 6:45 p.m. And if you go to brookpinto.dc.com/ANC-redistricting, that will allow you to register to get the link to attend the meetings. On March 14th, I want to highlight that we have a town hall where we hope to have at least one or several maps for you to look at, and you can leave your give your feedback at that town hall about what you think of the maps that are presented to you. So that's one you might want to circle on your calendar if you have any.
Ankit, it sounds like you're breaking up.
The redistricting should look like. And we have, oh, I'm sorry about that. Let me try turning my video off. Maybe that'll help.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Sure, go for it.
Yeah. So if you are interested in attending, go to that website, the Brook Pinto website, and sign up for March 14th, and you can get up to 3 minutes to testify. Next slide. This is, I kind of mentioned this already. Here's the timeline. We have to give a report by April 1st. Once we give our report, the council will in spring and a full council will. Our report is non-binding, so they'll, often what we end up proposing is what to some which end up happening. So if you want to influence the process, good to get involved right now. Next slide.
Ankit, you're kind of breaking up. We're getting about every
I'm not
other
seeing
word.
it. Okay. Let me try switching to a different.
Perhaps, Gretchen, could you fill in just to mention, talk to this slide while Ankit may be trying to reconnect?
Yeah, can you hear me? The key terms are Ward 2 has the following ANCs. 2A, which is Foggy Bottom West End, 2B, DuPont Circle, 2C, Downtown DC, China Penn Quarter, 2D, well, you can read it, 2E, 2F, and now our area that was Ward 6 now becomes 2G, which is the Shaw area. Single member districts, for those who aren't familiar, we refer to that as SMDs, advisory neighborhood commissions, ANCs, commissioner leader elected by the SMD neighbors. For an example, ANC 2F has 8 SMDs, each with 1 commissioner. That was our attempt at trying to kind of explain to everybody who wasn't used to all of this. Okay, next slide, guiding principles. Ankit, are you back?
Yeah, let me try again. I switched to my 5G Wi-Fi. Hopefully that'll help. Okay, if you guys are having trouble hearing me, please let me know, and then we can just maybe just switch to Gretchen. But we have some requirements in our redistricting work, and we have some recommendations that we're striving for. So the requirements are our meetings must be open to the public, which they are. We have to use the 2020 census total population data. We cannot dilute the voting strength of minority citizens. We're striving for keeping census blocks together and all ANCs within 1 ward. And then we're required to create the single member districts of 1,900 to 2,100 residents. We are allowed to go either over or under that if we can justify it to the council, but we need to provide a justification if we're going to go anywhere above or below that number. And there's many other expectations that are described in the DC code, which you can see at that link if you're interested. So I'm going to hand it off to Gretchen. We actually have 3 proposed maps already submitted to us, and she's going to describe them.
Okay, I'm not going to read every bullet because you can obviously see this, and I know everybody's trying to get out of here, and I do want to save some time for Q&A. The first map that we want to look at is one submitted by Alex Lopez, who's our 6002 commissioner. And I asked several questions of the people who were submitting the maps, and one was what kinds of things were they taking into consideration as they developed these maps? And the response was, in Alex Lopez's case, a contiguous compact map, target 5 to 8 SMDs per ANC, balance workload and duration of the meetings, representation with 1 ward, the entire ANC with Ward 2. Also to unite the Shaw neighborhoods, Howard University area, Blagden Alley, Naylor Court, and the same SMD, and the McCullough Terrace Apartments, DC Convention Center, and Mount Vernon Square. Now, we can switch to the next slide, and I know you can't read all of this because it's very difficult to see. However, it is on the website, and I don't know, Anka, would you like to put the link to the website just in case someone wants to go in to look at it? It would be the one on Brooke Pinto's website. I think Anka can put that into the chat. Or Michael has all of this, this presentation, so I don't know if you want to send it out because I know it's very, very hard to read this. But if we can go to the next slide.
I don't believe I have the ability to post stuff into the chat. I don't know if someone can give me that ability.
Okay, we can send a note to Michael and then he can do that. Is that how you prefer, Mike?
Well, one option is you can add it as a question in the Q&A, and I can just say thank you and then hit send, and then that whatever you put in there will end up in the Q&A section.
Perfect. Okay. So
sorry, Mike, I'm not able to add questions either to the Q&A for whatever reason.
Oh.
Okay, then I'll try to do it myself.
Okay, well, I'm going to keep talking. By the end of this, we'll figure this out. So everyone can get a closer look at these maps. But on this particular map, which I'm going to refer to as map 1, it begins at Florida Avenue in the west side of New Jersey Avenue, south to New York Avenue, and then west to 7th Street. If you're south on 7th Street Northwest to K to 9th Street Northwest, north on 9th to Mass, west to 10th Street. This is for those of you who may be looking at the map, and you can follow me along, as I give you the directions. North to P Street Northwest, west to 11th Street, and then 11th north to S Street to Wiltberger, north to T, east to Florida Avenue Northwest, Florida Avenue Northwest east to New Jersey Avenue. Those are the boundaries basically of what Alex is proposing in his particular map. Okay, next slide, please. This is the map 2G, we're going to refer to it as map 2, that's submitted by Pleasant Man and myself. And even though my name is on here, Pleasant is the absolute guru for going into this mapping site and getting this together. And I really want to give all kudos to him. The criteria he used was compact, distinct communities, avoid crossing major commercial corridors. ANC SMDs that allow Shaw residents to determine the neighborhood's commercial activities, development, district services, and recreational opportunities. Target 3 to 8 SMDs per ANC. What you'll find is all 3 of these maps are actually proposing 6 SMDs. Balanced populations by quantity, we spoke about that before. Our target is somewhere between 1,900 and 2,100 people per SMD. Reflecting the demographics, SMDs that contain both affordable and market rate housing, neighborhoods, and other features. You'll also see when you get a closer look at the maps that there is a demographic chart under each one that spells out the demographics as the ward information does. They've asked us to provide demographics along with the actual map. The neighborhoods and other features on this one are to unite the neighborhood north of Rhode Island Avenue Northwest into its own SMD. Originally, this area north of Rhode Island Avenue was part of the Shaw Historic District, which goes all the way over to 11th Street. So this would unite this northeast component of it west to be united with the historic district. The SMD also with the DC Convention Center, where we have Events DC and the Jason Hotel, Mount Vernon Square, Carnegie Library. Both sides of 9th Street Northwest, the commercial corridor in the same ANC for the first time because 9th Street was the dividing line initially. Blagden Alley, Naylor Court, Historic District would be included, and the public safety concerns addressed within the 3rd District, except for one block, and this is really unique, would actually have one police district for this particular ANC. Next slide, please. Again, I am not going to read all of this to you because I know you can't really see it very well, but you will have the link there. And these are the demographics that are attached to this map that we just talked about. But you can see the 2G05 area at the top goes westward versus southward. I'm not going to get into the detail because I know you can't see it very well. Next slide, please. Okay, the proposed boundaries for ANC 2G on map 2, the one we just looked at, is start at the northeast corner of 11th and S, east on S to Wilburger, north on Wilburger to Florida Avenue to T Street, Florida Avenue east to New Jersey, south to New Jersey Avenue Northwest, New York Avenue west to 7th Street, 7th Street north to K Street west to 9th, 9th Street north to Mass Avenue, and then west to 10th, north on 10th Street to O Street west to 11th Street north to S Street. Next slide, please. Those descriptions will make a lot more sense to you when you're looking at the map itself, and I know that. Okay, our last map is one that was presented by Rochelle Nigro and proposed by her, who's currently your ANC 6E04 commissioner. She's proposing a cross-ward SMD that would feature the following part of Ward 5. The part of Ward 5 is east of New Jersey Avenue. It was associated, I think, with a park when they did the ward redistricting, and the people who were part of her ANC got caught up with the park, I think, and they all ended up in Ward 5. So now she is proposing that we look at trying to get those 192 residents back into her SMD. We can't make that kind of a decision as a task force, and we've actually reached out to the Ward 5 task force people to get their feedback, their concerns, whether or not they're proponents of it, and we won't know that probably for another week or so. This also includes the Mount Vernon Square Shaw Truxton Circle area. Next slide, please. If everyone can see that little pink dot there, that's Rochelle's way of drawing that little Ward 5 area that was part of her single member district that's now kind of stuck over on the other side in Ward 5. And the map beside it actually shows where it is in Ward 5. And you can see the demographics underneath it. There are only 192 residents, but again, this is not a decision we can make because theoretically we are charged with trying to look at everything within our ward versus cross wards. There is a precedence for this. It's already set. I think it's between wards 3 and 4. But anyhow, we're going to have to wait another week or so just to see what Ward 5 says to us before we proceed any farther with this one. Next slide, please. Do we, Ankit.
Yeah, so those are 3 of the draft maps we received. We're interested in hearing from as many people as possible. So what we would love is if you are interested, we'd love for you to submit a draft map to us. And what I'm actually going to do is I figured out how to post in the chat. So I'm going to post, I'm posting right now the link to DC's redistricting software. And if you go to that link, you can draw your own map and you can send that to us. I'm also going to be posting my email address, and Gretchen could post hers as well. And you can send that, and you can send any map you draw to me or to Gretchen. And if a lot of people here don't know how to use mapping software, if you just want to write some comments and here's what I want to see in an ANC, or here's what my SMD should look like, you're welcome, and we'd love to hear your comments as well on that front. We're meeting on Thursday with the chair of the task force, Austin, where we're going to actually put forward one draft proposal for the Shaw Mount Vernon Triangle ANC and put that into like a broader Ward 2 map. So if you want to submit something before Thursday, that would be great, because then we can use that information to put forward our draft. But even if you can't do that, what we're going to end up proposing is just a draft, and we obviously can make changes to that draft. And so if you submit something to us and we say we like that better, we can change the draft to incorporate that. So that's what we're looking for from all of you all. If if you have friends or family members who are interested as well, please tell them to send our way any comments or draft maps.
Thanks to the 2 of you for that presentation. I'll take the chair's prerogative with the first question / comment. And as such, I'll actually flip back over to this map here and just ask, does the inclusion of that little, well, on one of them that's shaded pink, and on the other one, it's the blue. The inclusion of that little section of Ward 5 into what is currently maintaining it within the Ward 2 SMD, whichever number it gets. Would that necessitate other changes? I guess what I'm asking is, let's say we wanted to include that little corner onto maybe this map, right? Would inclusion of that little bit of Ward 5 shift the numbers for 2G04 so much that we would then need to shift a bunch of other boundaries? Or could it be sort of easily included on either of the other two maps without a significant rejigger of the boundaries?
Can you go back to the other map, the one you just had, because, nope, yeah, that one, where we see total population of where are we? Oh,
I think it's 192.
04. It's 192 that are in that would be added. But right now I'm trying to look at the existing population of the map. I don't know if we can scroll.
I think it's cut off from the bottom.
Yeah, that particular SMD.
Yeah.
We're trying to go between 1900 and 2100. So I'm trying to look at that to see what the current population is of the SMD and what that 192 would do to it. And I think it is cut off.
So one other way would be to take the 192 that we're looking at there and add it to this 2083, right? So if you add
275.
So that would bring us up to a number that's too high. Is that correct?
Yeah, but
yeah, that's right.
It would be over the 2100. Yes.
Right.
So Michael, can I say something? So when I did the map, I kind of had to remove one of the blocks from the map you have right for now with the 2083, and then I added on the little Ward 5 people.
Okay.
That's how I was able to balance out the numbers, because you can't add it to this map because it would then be too high.
Got it. Okay, interesting.
Right, but let me be honest with you. There's some other areas in Ward 2 that have under the population and a few have a little over. And until we sit down and look at the entire Ward 2 map, as Ankit was saying, in the next week or so, we really won't know whether exceptions have to be requested or what.
Okay. And could you, could the task force commissioner or members speak a little bit to the role of our existing commissioners in talking about and creating the new boundaries?
Well, interestingly enough, we as a task force decided to reach out to the ANC commissioners. The ANC commissioners were not supposed to be members of the task force. I guess the council mandated that. I'm not really sure, but I think so. But we decided to reach out to you anyhow, because we're all working together and you have your constituents, and we really want to understand how you feel about this, think about this, and what your constituents think about it. So basically, it still comes back to the task force making the final recommendation, but we certainly want your input.
Okay, well, I think that's my question for now. Do any of the commissioners have any additional comments or questions about any of the proposed maps? I'd be happy to flip back to whichever one you want to speak to, if anyone has any comments.
I see there's a question in the chat. I don't know if we want to get to that.
Yeah, usually we do commissioners first, and then we flip to the public.
My apologies.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You're new here, so just happy to take things in stride. Okay, so I guess the one thing that I would say, just first impressions. I think I like the driving. I like the statements from the map too, that what I like the sort of mission statement of it a lot. I think it resonates with me, and it results in a map that I think keeps groups together that may have a lot in common. But that's not to say that it's my preference at all. I'm just kind of thinking about how the shapes look. They're more compact, I think. One thing to note also is that Mount Vernon Square, the square itself, and then the convention center, there's nobody that lives in any of that space. So that like dog leg that hangs out down there isn't really super impactful when it comes to population. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Great. So if there are no additional comments from any of the commissioners, last call. So then, yeah, let's go over to the first comment in the Q&A, which is, I'll just read it verbatim. It looks like there are some presumptions that Shaw and Mount Vernon will be in an ANC together, north of K, east of 9th, 11th. And the only discussion is modest alternatives to SMD boundaries. When were those decisions made? For example, what about North Logan, North Shaw being one ANC, and South Logan, Mount Vernon Square being another one? What are the restrictions for proposed maps?
I can just start off a little bit and then Gretchen can go next. So the way we've been doing the process is having each of the existing ANCs. We have 2 members from all of the existing ANCs except for one, which has only 1 member. And they've been kind of proposing their own maps for their ANC region. And the effect of that has been that the general ANC boundaries have, from the current map, have kind of stayed the same. And so what that means is that the ANC 2F, which is the Logan Circle ANC, right now all the proposals have been pretty much keeping that area mostly this, in the same ANC with some changes, and then changing the SMDs up a lot. That's where a lot of the changes have been happening. But there's no reason it needs to be like that. And so if people have opinions that they don't think that we should be doing it, that we should be keeping Logan Circle in one SMD, in one ANC, sorry, and Mount Vernon Shaw in a separate ANC, I would appreciate you all to email me and Gretchen, or to attend one of the task force meetings and say that, so we can, and with some specificity, so we can understand why you feel that way. And that way we can take that and make that comment, and then we can work with our neighbors in Logan Circle and say, well, we've been hearing some comments that we want to go a different way. How do you feel about that? And then we can work with them in that manner. I don't know if Gretchen, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I would prefer you sending that in, but just remember, don't think of just the neighborhood. Just remember, we have to work within that 1900 to 2100 number. So we're not just looking at individual neighborhoods, we're looking at neighborhoods together to comprise that single member district.
Great. And one thing that I thought that I heard that maybe I didn't, could you provide clarity? Were the instructions to you to try to reduce the number of boundary changes? Was there anything about that in the instruction?
No, we were told to, we're given the ward. Some people wanted to start with the ANCs and move out. Other people said, no, we can't do that. We have to look at it as Ward 2 in general and see what's best for the whole ward and all of the members. And I think that's kind of the way we've gone, at least a lot of us have. Okay. But like I said, nothing's final now, so that's why we're asking for your input.
Yeah, great. And there is another question in the Q&A, which is it common practice for ANCs to have an even number of commissioners? Odd numbers would avoid regular deadlocks.
That is a hilarious question. And I say hilarious because everybody talked about this so many times. People said, oh, great, we can't have an even number because there might be a deadlock. Somebody else said, well, not every commissioner shows up at the meeting anyhow, so then we may not have enough. So we had as many pros and cons for even number, odd number, So that's how, and somehow we ended up with the 3 we're presenting is all having 6 for that. I think for the reason that not everybody shows up at the meeting and you still need a number of people there to make decisions.
Well, I imagine if you made it 7, that one of them would have too few people, right?
Yes.
And if you made it 5, then one of them would have too many. So it does seem to think that maybe the 6 is just the magic number based off of where the boundaries are already drawn for 2G. But you could grab some people from 2F if you wanted to, and then that could give us a chance to have a 7.
Or vice versa. They could take, for example, 2F could theoretically, I'm not saying this, I'm proposing this, but 2F could theoretically take 2G06, and that would make 5s for 2G.
Right.
So that's an option. And if people feel strongly about this, the odd number, again, I I recommend, I really feel that you should send in the comments so we have that available.
Okay, and it looks like there's another question in the Q&A about the ward divisions being officially set, and the answer is yes. Those were official as of January 1st, January 2nd of 2022. So the boundaries for Ward 2 are set, and if you're in Ward 2 on this map or any map, then you're in Ward 2. Okay. Okay, looks like John Shaw has his hand up. Do you want to speak? I just read your question, John. Sorry, I didn't see your hand was up. Okay, now your hand is down. All right, so it looks like we've got his question answered. So last call, sorry, and I didn't say this earlier. If anyone's on the phone and wants to chime in, *9 to raise your hand, and I'll go ahead and unmute you. Last call for comments from commissioners or public.
I do have a comment, but we could go to John first.
Sorry, what was that, Alex?
I do have a question, but if you want to go to John Shaw's question first, that's fine.
Oh, no, I read his question from the QA already, and then he put his hand down. So feel free to ask your question.
Okay. So I mentioned this in my send ahead, but one of the things that I think that the ANC, that the Ward 2 redistricting, ANC redistricting task force should think about with regards to the number of single member districts in each ANC is an issue regarding representation. And according to the the district law that states that ANCs carry great weight in certain matters before executive agencies and the such, when you have an ANC like ANC 2 D, I believe, that has 2 single member districts, and ANC, let's say 2F, which has 8 single member districts, those are different size ANCs, but the resolutions that 2D and 2F pass both carry the same great weight when they're commenting on a matter before a district agency, an executive agency. So the example that I would raise is, say there's a zoning map amendment before the zoning commission. I don't know how the zoning commission looks at this, or if different agencies look at it differently, but it is dilutive, I believe, of voting representation for there to be larger ANCs where 8 or 9 or 12 single member districts collectively get 1 vote on these issues where ANCs are given great weight. And then you have another ANC with only 2 single member districts whose 2 commissioners collectively also get 1 great weight vote. So that's something that I don't know if the task force has talked about that at all, but it seems to be an issue that is somewhat important for Ward 2, especially given that we currently have 1 ANC with a very, very small population and only 2 single member districts.
Yeah, Alex. So that's Colorama 2D, and that is like the most contentious issue, to be honest. And so we're definitely talking about that, and exactly, some people feel exactly the way you do, and other people, in 2D feel very strongly that they want to keep the 2-member ANC district, and that's something we're discussing right now. And I appreciate your comment on that point, and it's something that we're trying to resolve.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Ankit is absolutely correct. We've been talking about that for a month or more now.
Thanks.
Okay, so thanks to Gretchen and Ankit and the entire Ward 2 ANC redistricting task force for doing all this hard work for us and giving us this update. There were some additional comments, at least 1 comment of support for a particular map that was in the Q&A. So I've responded to that, and it should also now be available for everyone in the public to see. So feel free to dip in there and grab that comment out as well. So if there are no other items, it's time to move on to, no other comments, and it's time to move on to the next item, which is item 15, an update from the Ward 6 redistricting task force. And I hope that we have Ivan here with us, or someone else from the Ward 6 task force. Please raise your hand and I will promote you to a panelist. I also will just double check my email. And I see a note that they are running a little behind schedule. So if that is the case, just give them another chance. And we could actually pop over to some additional administrative items and then come back to this item here. I don't seem to see any. Don't seem to see Ivan. Okay. Okay. And then we did have a brief update from someone on the rock and roll half marathon. Is Diane Thomas on the call? Diane, or if one of these phone numbers is you, hit *9 to identify yourself. And I can give you the floor to give your update real quick. Okay, so I just heard a little chime. Let's see if that was, it is. Oh, Ivan says he is on. So Jay. So Ivan, if you are on, hopefully you can hear me. Please raise your hand so I can identify you to promote you to panelist. And then I will also hit. I love technology. Ivan, are you here? There we go. Hello, Ivan. Are you with us?
Hi there. Sorry about
Hi.
that.
No worries. Thank you for joining us this evening. And looks like the request for an 8:45 time slot came to fruition after all. So just quickly turn
I
it over to you.
apologize. I was on, we actually ended on time, and I've been on through my work computer, which I discovered today. I was testifying for the New York Senate Banking Committee. And it is this meeting here and that meeting is the first time that I think our VPN has ever blocked me being seen by you. So I was on raising my hand, but it wasn't operating. So I'm now dialed in through my iPad. What that does mean is that I can't share the maps that I have through my iPad.
Do you want to email them to me and I can pull them up on my?
If you go to Charles Allen's website, the redistricting website, the presentation was posted there earlier. We're going to post the full Esri map on to the tool later today or tomorrow.
Okay, so can you help me find it on the main page?
There should be a link at the top that says redistricting.
I'm on the redistricting webpage.
Oh, go down into the meeting materials for this meeting.
I'm seeing upcoming meeting schedule, past meeting videos, resource documents, committee meetings, because they're committee members. I mean, I'll just share my screen and you can help guide me to it.
March 1st, under the March 1st meeting, you can see download the slide deck here.
Okay. All right. So see. This thing right here.
Yep.
Look at that.
Bingo.
Okay.
All right, to expedite this, maybe you could go to, I'm just gonna write into the meat of 6A, so I think these, in this version, it's not. The page 5. Go to the next page, or next one. There you go. That shows 6E in more detail. So first of all, thank you for having us tonight, and apologies for the technical difficulties. I definitely apologize for keeping you all later than need be, knowing how hard you guys work. I was commissioner in 6B quite a while ago, and 10 years ago when we went through this redistricting process. So I think in part through that experience is why Charles asked me to chair the task force. We have been going through a process of having teams of folks work through each of the commissions. There's a lot of issues in the northern half of the ward here that are intersecting. And it's like toothpaste in the tube. So when you squeeze in one area, it comes out the other side. But where we've gotten to, and where our 6E folks, Marge, Maseda, and others, have come to, is like, they're happy with this map. We still have some more process to go through, and feedback around the boundary being the essentially the train line there. But the things that we were looking at with 6E was that you have a significant area that is in 6E06, which is largely unpopulated. So I think east of North Capitol, south of L, that whole area maybe has like a couple hundred people in it, but has a lot more buildings coming online, right? And so, but future build is not something, or future occupancy is not something that we can consider according to case law on this as we build maps. And so the thought was, if we have that train line as the border, and we stretch 6E to 9 members, then what that will allow us to do is we'll have to everything will be on the very low side. So we're kind of get to an average of maybe 1,900, and so we're going to have to get some waivers from the council to do this, but that it was better to be on the low side and accommodate the growth that was going to happen than it was to try to squeeze this all into 8 ANCs, or to start to address it by going over into the area that's marked here as Commission 6C. So it's a challenging area to draw maps for. You have areas there's nobody, and then you have areas you can see in 6E02, which is like basically 2 half blocks intersected by Mass Ave that have over 2,000 people in them, right? And so it's challenging when you get into some of these blocks to kind of get to actually anywhere close to the variance. So there's the arrows denote places where we're going to explore some block splitting, and the rest of the places will be waivers. But so I'll stop there, and very interested in your feedback and questions.
Thanks so much for that, Ivan. Do we have any comments or questions from the commissioners?
Hey, so I represent 6E05. I'm struck that 6E02 is an extremely small area of land. I'm fairly certain that's just one apartment building on one side of the street, and the other is just like straight up another apartment building with nothing else going on there.
Yep.
Recognizing that there's a large population mass, but yeah, just generally it's an extremely small land area, and I guess land area doesn't factor into the discussion when you're drawing the districts. But I mean, is there any thought given to putting one side of that block back into 6E05 and shifting the map in a sort of a different way at all?
It becomes, because they're so up against that corner, And because with 6005 and because 6003, which is a very large area, has very few people in it, it becomes really hard to do. I mean, I think I would encourage you once we get the map up there to kind of get in there and save a copy and play around with it. And we're kind of open to any and all solutions around this. But we have done a bunch of playing and it is just not easy to do.
I was also kind of under the impression that the other side there, you know, Massachusetts Avenue being the dividing line between Ward 6 and Ward 2, in that 6002 part, is that, so did Ward 6 gain that across the street area there? The
Yeah,
lower half, if you
yeah,
will?
that's exactly right. So as it was, Massachusetts Avenue was the border between 6 and 2. And Ward 6, while it gave up a lot of other areas, it picked up that portion of Ward 2.
Gotcha.
Great. Any other commissioners with questions or comments for the Ward 6 redistricting task force? Okay, you know, so Kevin isn't actually on the call today. He would be impacted by this as well. Okay, so we do have one question from the community. I'm going to unmute Marge.
Oh, great.
It's good to get public feedback.
Well, Marge is on the task force.
Oh, well, Marge, your hand is up.
Yeah.
Make some comments.
Trying to get in. Can you hear me?
You're coming through. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we tried a whole lot of different things to keep the triangular shape and the common interest of the people when Sheila and I first started working on this. We agreed that the best boundary for the one side would be the railroad tracks, and that the piece allows us to bring that, doing that allows us to bring in some of what was NOMA, any apartment buildings with businesses in the upper area of that map, and then the lower area where that one little tidbit is that Commissioner from 05 asked about, that was changed from Ward 2 into Ward 6, and it's the 400 Mass Avenue and a couple of other buildings right there. And then the below area, which has very little population and includes part of the National Mall, became another whole SMD. So we looked at a lot of different things, and we hope that this will be a workable situation.
Thank you for that update. There was a question about where is 6D or B, but I believe those are just below the map on a.
Yeah, this
previous one.
6B and 6D are on, they're on a different slide on this presentation, but they're to the south. One just general item is we are pursuing a joint Ward 6, Ward 8 commission for the Navy Yard area. It has very natural boundaries to the east of South Capitol, to the south of the freeway, and Navy Yard really is a kind of you know, a very concentrated community, and so we're going to develop options for a joint ward, like essentially a Navy Yard commission.
Sure, I could pull up. Is there a slide that you want me to just show what you're talking about?
If you go to, maybe just go up one.
Oh, up one.
I think that's the whole ward summarized.
So you're saying that this area here, which is now Ward 8, would be,
and the two SMDs there are 6D 09 and 6D 10. Those would also be part of, that's what I was describing, the area that's east of South Capitol. Those would become part of the Navy Yard Commission. The challenge with just the software of the mapping tool is that we're having to get OP to kind of reassign those census blocks over into Ward 8, because right now you can only map one ward at a time, and technically those two SMDs are in Ward 6.
Okay. Looks like I like the analogy of the toothpaste. You squeeze the tube one way and comes out the other side. Thank you for your support here. If there's no further comments from commissioners of the public,
I have one question.
Yeah, sure.
So thanks for presenting tonight. I know that in the part of Ward 6 that was redistricted to Ward 8 and the part that was redistricted to Ward 7, there must have been single member districts whose SMD boundary was split by wards. Is the Ward 6 ANC redistricting task force considering creating single member districts that encompass multiple wards that cross ward boundaries? And
no, just for so really let's use the example of 6009, or if that had been a commission district under last redistricting, and really it was just part of it got sliced off and put with where the sort of the unmapped area here, or the unmarked area of Navy Yard, would we consider just poking our toe into a Ward 8 thing? I don't think so. I think it takes both council members to agree to do this, and it takes community interests on both sides to agree to do it. And so I think it took a while, but then there was an emerging consensus, and both Treyon White and Charles Allen sort of connected and said, yes, we want to do this, and it's a natural border there. And so we're kind of taking that whole area. And I don't know that, I can't imagine that being done for just a part of an existing SMD.
Hey, I've got a follow-on question as well. So I see two red arrows on the screen here. One is sort of on top of 6E05, and the other one is pointing into 6E03.
Yeah, those are to note places where we will explore block splitting. So the map doesn't give you the ability to look at it. It tells you what the numbers are for a block, right? So let's say the northern part of 6E02, we'll call it 1,000. What we don't know is if there's discrete buildings in there. The Office of Planning actually has occupancy by building. And so they can tell us, maybe in that really northern little corner, we could actually move, we could move that up into 6E05 with a discrete building, and that would split a block, and we could do that. But the mapping tool doesn't allow you to do that. So we will have to go to OP in these instances and say, can you give us the granular data for these census blocks so that we can see if there's a block splitting approach.
Gotcha. And I think one of the block splitting kind of possibilities you have here, I believe that is the 400 block of K, 6E01 and 6E05. Is that accurate?
Yes.
So, and this is just like feedback for consideration. That is currently kind of a hot spot where there's a lot of like traffic safety stuff that's being ironed out between DPW and DDOT. It's a little bit chaotic. After the bike lane was implemented, we're seeing some lack of enforcement issues with the PUDO zones. So it is a bit of a traffic hotspot. So I wonder if splitting that block is really in the best interests, because it could just sort of, it could create.
Well, so as I understand it, the block is it's the north-south that runs along, what is it, 5th Street? Is that what you're saying?
I'm thinking about the 400 block of K.
Okay. Yep, I got you. And so what we're talking about is, it doesn't need to be, it could, I see what you're saying. So in that southern part of that of the block that is in 6E01, if we're trying to essentially move from some of the population 21, 25 over into 17, 12, it's not a good idea to do that along K, and it might be more better to do it from the northern part of that block, right? That is along the sort of northern part of Fifth Street.
Yes.
Okay, that's great.
All from me. Thanks.
Sorry, I was muted. Okay, so thank you very much for your hard work and your toothpaste tubing to the Ward 6 ANC Redistricting Task Force. Thanks for your time tonight. I'm glad the timing worked out. Really, we wish you the best of luck in your continued work on this important effort.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you all do to serve the city.
You're very welcome. All right, thank you. Okay, so do we have, thanks so much. Do we have Diane Thomas on the call from the Rock and Roll Hotel to do a brief update? I'm not seeing so. Okay, so let's just round out the meeting with our financial items. Frank, you want to take it away for item 18?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. We have some expenses on the table. Michael, I don't think I received any expenses from you for the Zoom meeting. We'll take care of that next one, or?
I believe I did send it to you, and I could send it
Today?
again. Yeah.
Well, let me take a look at it real quick. Was it sent today?
No, it was sent a couple of weeks ago. I believe I
Okay.
sent it when I got it, but
Oh, just a second.
I can forward it to you now.
Yeah, do that if you will.
Yeah, I prefer not to float the ANC for longer than I have to.
Right. Yeah, send that to me. While I'll deal with Michelle's and Karen's, I'll offer that vote now. So while Michael is sending me that expense, we have an expense for Rochelle Nigro for $18.66. I move the NC60 support the reimbursement of $18.60 for copies made by Rochelle Nigro, provided I can get a second.
Second.
Good. Do we have all in favor?
Aye.
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 Denise, are you available?
Aye.
Okay, great. So that's 6. And do we have any nays and abstentions? Okay, 6 yeses. Great, thank you. Next
Okay,
item.
I move the ANC60 support the payment of $250 to Karen for the maintenance of the website as well as our meeting minutes, provided I can get a second.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, a post office box. The post office box went up $12 from last year and from the amount we voted on during the meeting during January. So we approved $424, but it cost $436. Therefore, I move the ANC60 support the reimbursement of $12 to yours truly to cover the balance of the post office box that was paid on February the 8th, 2022, provided I get a second.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Denise is on there. Great, thank you. 6.
All right, and I'm gonna look for, I still don't see your receipt. You want to offer a motion for your receipt, Michael, since I don't see it?
Sure. So I would like to, I'd be happy to share the screen in real time if people want to see what we're talking about here. Just to verify that this is actually happening. So you can see here on the screen, we've got an invoice. Maybe it's because it didn't come from me. It came from the 6E general email box. Now everyone knows my home address. And you can see over here, the total amount, $99.63. So I'd like to move that ANC 6E support reimbursement for Chair Eichler for $99.63 for the Zoom webinar and standard for the current month? I need a second.
A second.
Okay, Denise seconded, and all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, any
Aye.
opposed, abstentions? Okay, that one passes as well for the Zoom. Thank you.
Also, as part of this month's treasury report, I finally was able to, I was in Wells Fargo account all day today, and it didn't get updated until like 5:30 this evening. So I was able to print out the statement for February. All of the checks, thankfully, even the check from the Office of ANC was cash, thankfully. Sometimes that $25 check is not cash for months and months and months. So thankfully, I'm excited to know that that check was clear, as well as the other checks that was written for the month. So our balance forward for today's date, or February the 28th, is $56,081.48. When you look at the ANC 6E checking ledger, everything posted has cleared. We have no variances. So we're doing really well with our numbers. Earlier today, I was not able to verify that the checks cleared, but thankfully with me getting access to the banking statement about 6:15 this evening, between 6:15, I was able to verify that all checks presented were actually cleared. So we are in good standing. So the quarterly report, as you see it, as of today's date, is a running total. The beginning balance was $57,321.54. The amount to date is $56,081.48. So that equals to the same amount that's inside the bank account. So we are all even Steven. So we're looking good. So I move to ANC 6E, support the treasury report that's been presented at this present time, provided I can get a second. We also have, well, let's take that vote.
Second.
Denise seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Frank, are you voting on that?
Aye.
Okay. All right.
I was looking at my other part of my report.
No worries.
So I think that really encompasses everything we need, because the monthly treasury report, the official report that's in your package, shows the 4 checks that were written for last month. So all of that is included inside the statement. So I think we are good to go.
Great. Thank you for that, Frank. Any other last minute items from you, Frank? All set on the financials?
I think we're all straight. Next month,
go.
we'll deal with the F22 Q2 report.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it. All right. So do we have any announcements from the community? Any community announcements? Okay. And then I'm realizing there was one little glitch on the agenda, which is the date of the next meeting, which I didn't update. So the next meeting of ANC 6E will be at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, April 5th. Tuesday, April 5th. So that is the next meeting. Okay, so I am going to move that we adjourn our 6E commission meeting this evening.
Second.
Okay, Denise seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, a full unanimous meeting. Thanks everyone for your time tonight. Thanks again. See you guys soon.
Bye from Ward 5.
Good night.
Bye, everyone. Oh, I can't leave.